Witch in Charm's Way, a cozy mystery audiobook, written and narrated by R.K. Dreaming. Part 21. Chapter 12, The Fourth Wheel. "We should go and check it out," said Jasper, looking very enthusiastic about the idea of finding this mystery man who Lily had met the night that she had died. Having dropped that bombshell, a devastated Oberon and his friends had left the cafe, and Jasper had followed me back into the kitchen. I dumped the tray of dirty dishes that I had brought with me into the sink. I caught that random whiff of blood again and shook my head in the hopes of clearing it. It stayed. Was it Lily, I wondered, reminding me that she was still lingering here? A huge pile of dishes had already formed in the sink. Aunt Adele was going to need some better help than me. Any other witch could have set the dishes to washing while she had a chat with Jasper, but not me. Aunt Adele was out in the cafe chatting to her friends. I started washing some of the dishes by hand. Jasper stood next to me and started drying them. I was surprised I hadn't taken him for someone who was hands-on with household chores. "So what do you think?" said Jasper. "I should go and check it out," I said. "There's no need for you to come with me." "Other than that, I like to have fun," he said. "And Club Nocturne is a lot of fun, especially with you." He reached out to tuck a lock of my dark hair behind my ear, taking me by surprise. I froze. The door behind us opened, and I was so startled that I dropped the slippery dish in my hand. It smashed loudly on the ground. To my dismay, I saw it was Chris Constantine who had come in. I flushed bright red. He had clearly seen me and Jasper through the glass on the kitchen door. The expression on his face was blank. He didn't comment, but I felt very awkward. "Your aunt told me I would find you in here," he said. "She said that you were serving Oberon Malte Jr. and his friends. I need to question them. Can you tell me where they've gone?" I took a step away from Jasper quickly. He, on the other hand, casually crossed his arms over his chest and leaned a hip against the sink. His gaze flicked from me to Chris Constantine, and his lips slightly tilted up with amusement. I wanted to swat him with a tea towel to wipe that smirk off. He knew it too, and darn the man if he didn't wiggle his ear at me, on purpose. I couldn't help but snigger and had to quickly look away. "No idea," I said to Agent Constantine. "They didn't mention where they were going next." Agent Constantine did not turn to leave. He continued to stand there in the doorway. I found it difficult to meet his gaze for some reason. "You could try asking Petra Amber's mum," I said. "Petra said her mum was feeling really paranoid after what happened to Lily and was messaging her every hour to keep a close eye on her, so her mum should know where she is." Jasper had raised an eyebrow at me. I knew he was wondering why I had not mentioned to Agent Constantine that Jasper and I had already questioned Oberon and his friends, and that we had information that Agent Constantine might be interested in. I shot Jasper a quick glance to tell him to shut up. I didn't know why I wanted to keep the information to myself. I trusted Agent Constantine, didn't I? It was his boss that I did not trust. There was also my sense of competition. My little wager of last night had become real in my head. I had a burning desire to prove to Agent Constantine that I could find the murderer before him. Why was it that I liked needling him so much? And finally, it was that I simply didn't trust anyone when it came to society's aversion to vampires. Deep down, I was worried that Chief Hardwick would want to pin this on Oberon, and I wasn't sure that it was Oberon who had done it. My instincts told me it wasn't. "Ooh, instincts," said a voice. "You can't go wrong following your instincts. We cats should know." Captain Villain had just strolled into the kitchen between Agent Constantine's legs. He came over to twine himself around my ankles, his tail in the air, his nose twitching hopefully. "Where are those prawns you promised me?" he said. I shot him an apologetic look. I hadn't had a chance to buy any yet. I went over to the icebox to see if Aunt Adele had any in there. "What are you doing?" said Agent Constantine. "Captain Villain wants a snack," I said. Agent Constantine muttered something under his breath that sounded suspiciously like, "That dratted cat." Captain Villain glared at him. "It's a good job you aren't telling him all your clues," he said. "That bumbling buffoon will only get in your way." I glared at Captain Villain. I wanted to tell him that Chris was most certainly not a bumbling buffoon. Captain Villain made a noise in my mind that sounded somewhat like a snort of derisive laughter. "Ooh, Chris, is it? On first-name terms now, are we?" he said. "You can't be in here," I said to him irritably. "It's hardly hygienic having a cat in the kitchen." "I'm very clean," he said snootily. "So clean, I'm practically hypoallergenic." "I think you mean antimicrobial," I muttered. "What?" said Chris and Jasper together. "Nothing," I said. I looked at Captain Villain. "There are no prawns in there. You'll just have to come back later." "I don't think so," he said. "This little scene is far too interesting." He jumped lightly up on the counter and settled himself there, watching the three of us with great interest. His gaze paused on Agent Constantine. "Why is the great lump of man-flesh just standing there?" "Captain Villain wants to know why you are still here," I said to Chris. He glared at me. "Because I want to know what you spoke to Oberon and his friends about." Nothing got past him, it seemed. I shrugged. "This and that. Oberon is an all-right guy, you know, if you're looking to pin something on him." Agent Constantine looked offended. "I'm not looking to pin this on anyone, except the person who did it." "This one won't last in horrid Hawk Hardwick's team for long," said Captain Villain. I wasn't sure how I felt about this. We needed as many honest officers as we could get now that Hawk Hardwick was chief. I wasn't going to let Oberon become Chief Hardwick's first victim. "How interesting," said Captain Villain. I scowled at him. What exactly was so darn interesting? If he was going to sit here, then the least he could do was stop being so enigmatic. "Enigmatic? Who, me? I was just thinking that you're so busy worrying about people being prejudiced against Oberon that you don't seem to have stopped to think that maybe you're being too prejudiced in favour of Oberon." "Well," said Agent Constantine impatiently. I looked at him startled. "Well, what?" "Clearly, you're having some sort of unspoken conversation with your cat," he said sarcastically. "Is he telling you who the murderer is?" "Yes," I retorted. "But since you don't believe anything that cats say, I have no intention of telling you." "Steamy," muttered Jasper under his breath, so that only I could hear. "Shut up," I said to him. "Fine," said Agent Constantine, interrupting us. "If you think of anything relevant, you've got my card and you can call me." "I'll do that," I said. He took a step back, intending to leave the kitchen. But just then Aunt Adele arrived behind him and pushed him back in forcefully. He flinched a little at the cold of her touch. "You can't leave just yet," she said cheerfully. "I want to hear all about your murder case. And you can't leave before I give you a slice of this Belgian chocolate tart I've made especially for you." She went over to the counter to find the tart and to cut out a large slice. "I really can't stay long," said Agent Constantine, "and I can't discuss the case at the moment." "Don't be shy for our sakes," I said to him, indicating me and Jasper. We'll leave you and Aunt Adele alone, shall we? I gave him a tart smile. Aunt Adele swooped over to me and started pushing me towards the kitchen table. No, 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 she said. It's time for your break. I insist that you stay here and keep these two wonderful young gentlemen company. In fact, why don't I leave you all alone? Leave, I'm being what you young folk call a fourth wheel. I shall go and take care of my customers. Esme, you take care of these two. Make them some of my special tea. She gave me a wink and then swept out of the kitchen door. Jasper burst into laughter. Do you think your aunt is matchmaking, perhaps? He said. I looked at him and then at Chris and then groaned. Why do you always say these things out loud? I said, and threw my tea towel at him. With a snort of disgust, Chris stood up and stalked out of the kitchen. Wait, called Jasper. Take your tart with you. Hey, this is the end. Comment, elementary, my dear Watson, to confuse everyone who hasn't reached this part of the story yet. Thank you for playing along.